Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Friday, favorite day of the week, and it starts with an F, and it's Friday. Gianluca, how are you today? Happy Friday, and how are you doing today?
Enjoying the Friday. Very happy that it's Friday indeed.
I'm excited. Man, I'm excited about AI. I really am. But in science and the science, like one of the things that I've always wondered is who's feeding what to AI? How do we know whether it's real, it's truthful, or it's being altered, right? I think, like, man, so many times I see, especially on Twitter, people tagging Grok, and they're tagging Grok and telling them or feeding Grok certain information, and they're trying to alter that AI of the way they're thinking, and it's really, like, kind of almost at the same time fascinating to watch that there's, like, this happening, but at the same time almost scary, because I'm like, wait, I was like, the AI, does it really know what that true intentions are of that individual that's trying to feed it? And so, man, it comes to this world of the science where, you know the data needs to be totally factual. The data needs to be totally readable and shareable and writable at the same time. But how do we make sure that it always stays in context? It always stays in contact to what we're trying to do. So really excited to kind of deep dive into what circular protocols doing, how you guys are, like, envisioning and seeing all this kind of breakdown. But before we get started, Gianluca, love to have you give us, like, that 30-second intro of who are you and how did circular protocol just get started, and, like, what rabbit hole did you go down to start DeScience?
Well, I'm Italian, first of all. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, United States, where I've been now faculty at Harvard Medical School and Extension School for the past almost 17 years, and as a researcher. And I've been also directing a medical device and simulation lab for Mass General Brigham Hospital. Uh, my background is in high performance computing, so anything connected to a GPU. How did I get into circular? It's a very funny story. So anyway, in my career, 99% of my research fund comes from the Department of Defense. I've been collaborating with the U.S. Department of Defense for healthcare matters, and in particular in definition of new standards for medical simulation and protocols that needs to be applied on the field or in critical situations. During COVID, I was at home like many other people, and I was just observing the disaster that was happening around the world. And when they announced that they were going to fast track vaccines, I immediately understood that this was going to become a nightmare from a regulatory perspective at the end of the pandemic. Because when you put a new product on the market, someone always gets hurt. But if there is a fast track and there is immunity for who's doing that, that start becoming concerning for everybody else. So I decided that I wanted to build a technology that could be used for making the data used for this kind of research at least auditable. So it doesn't matter the circumstances or the time, but if you can audit that research data, after, you can always identify errors, problems, flaws, and responsible and accountable people. I didn't even think about building a blockchain. Like, I thought it was crazy. So obviously the first thing to do was to look into the existing blockchains and try to find the best one. And then I just realized that in that case would have been a total nightmare from a compliance perspective because they're not built for healthcare. And so I had, unfortunately, to invest and build my own, which was pretty much built in a basement. And then I started raising funds, and everything else happened.
Yeah, it's first of all, congratulations, and it's awesome to hear, the resume, and I always think it's super important when we listen to certain individuals where their backgrounds come from, so that we could have always great context to that. I got to ask you that $1 million question. Harvard, working with a lot of individuals there. How do you tell them what you do for DeSci? How do you tell them what circular protocol is in their terms? And how do you engage them to want to learn more about this?
Look, I never really liked the paradigm of research because the paradigm of research is not in favor of the best and most talented researchers, but in most cases, it's designed to, um, let's say, facilitate life of people that are very good in selling their research, in very good in compromising in their research. So the best scientist today, unfortunately, is not the best scientist, but is the most funded scientist. I never really liked this, even if my career has been going pretty well. And at some point, I simply decided I don't have to do this job to please the institutions. I have to do this job because I want to spend my skills and my time to make the world a better place. It might sound lame or naive, but that's really what it is.
Yeah, no, I love it because I think we're so aligned there, and it's definitely one of those things that technology is something that has evolved, and it's evolving very, very fast. And with that said, while it evolves, how do we still move or keep the world going round and round, right? Like, how do we make sure all of it still, is true to the ethically core of what we were trying to do here or accomplish together?
Yeah, well, COVID has designated the collapse of trust in healthcare industry and institutions. That's a fact. So the question is, what comes next? What comes next is not the reconstruction of that trust, because that trust will probably take 1-2 generations to be rebuilt. That trust needs to be replaced with transparency. So not what I say, not a beautiful story or a beautiful commercial, but tools that offer transparency and kills the conflict of interest that has been always affecting the healthcare industry and the food industry as well.
Yeah, no, I second that one. I think that we went through definitely a time where things got tested, and look, I am also in the United States, but around the world, right? Like around the world, healthcare really got really tested, and in certain parts of the world, healthcare got tested even harder than from a standpoint of being able to handle what was happening. Of course, transparency wise, and then again, just what would the results were from what COVID was unfortunately happened. And so I think like there was definitely a lot of questions, and I think there's still a lot of questions till this day. So I think, yeah, how, the replacement of that, I really like that the way that you've put that is that trust could take a generation to probably rebuild, but maybe we can speed it up by replacing some sort of way of trust here, and it could possibly be this. And so I think like maybe go right into the first question there for me would be is, how do you tackle that? Like, where do you start? Like how does circular protocol like start? And I guess where do you see the community, the researchers, the people that are working around, or people that are kind of new to this and seeing you for the first time? Like, how do they get involved with kind of the overall mission here?
Mm-hmm. So, in my opinion, the best way to try to improve science in general, I am particularly interested in the healthcare, is decentralization. That's kind of a pretty naive answer. But what does it mean, decentralized science? Because science has been always a little decentralized, if you think about, with research institutions and research groups around the world. No, the problem is that when a researcher needs to pay the bills and has to put the bills as a priority to its research, it's willing to accept compromises, and that is a very big danger. So decentralized science doesn't mean only funding in science. as a decentralized funding. Decentralized science means 4 different things: funding, integrity, ownership, and censorship. These are the 4 pillars of decentralized science. The funding, of course, if I can find a way to decentralize funding, I can make things, you can get funded without having an agenda that depends from a central institution. But you also can use decentralization to prove what you're doing. So integrity of the data you're producing and you're consuming. Then there is ownership. I don't want to work on research that is going to be segregated and nobody's going to ever benefit from, or someone else is going to put their name instead of mine. And then you have like the censorship, which is I invent something that can be disruptive and someone will completely put this on the side. They will never know because someone else paid. So as the ownership, nobody will ever know what I invented that could improve the world. So this was a very important understanding. And what Circular does is offering an infrastructure for all small and big projects to come and build and support these 4 different things. For the funding right now, we are sending everybody to Solana or to other ecosystems because we are not very crypto, but for all the other infrastructure connected to the data, we are really supporting heavily the other 3 aspects.
Yeah, and I think that like, I like the thing like, is it just funding? Because you're right, it's not just funding, right? There's just so much more. And I think beautiful is technology, the transparency that blockchain does offer and give us. And I think that that avenue as it being explored, where does data sit in there, and where does data become such a shareable with other peers and other organizations to make research, I would say, I don't want to say the word faster, but move or navigate through the space faster. Because I think love to hear your take on why it is so slow in right now currently research in certain industries. And I think you mentioned before of like the science kind of like not being kind of something that's so much new, but the more of the, hey, like this big names, and especially in America, right, are very much fully focused on an ROI standpoint of research and where it's going to be the maximal impact. And maybe is that why it's being slowed down in certain areas or certain things about research in an overall health of where things are right now?
Well, you asked the question, but you also gave the answer. It's because of the science that is being funded the most, that moves faster, measures the return of the investment, the ROI, on a financial basis. So if that's the only return we are looking for, I understand sustainability, but there are things that can be sustainable and can be absolutely be measured through financial success. But think about rare diseases. It's very hard to make them profitable, the cure for rare diseases. And there will be many other fields of science that cannot be profitable, but they are absolutely needed. And that is a very big and important part of what we do. Most importantly, a lot of the best ideas die very quickly. There is a death valley for science projects when they leave the institutions. And this is done because when you leave the institutions and you start your own startup, probably about the science, but you don't know about many other aspects of the science and the compliance and the regulation and all these things. So all of a sudden, if you don't have a team that supports you with that, you end up building stuff, and the first time you hit the market, you get sued. The problem is not moving the data. The data, it's okay. People love to keep their data secret and blah, blah, blah. The problem, though, is I'm okay that you have your own secret data. but I want to know that the data is truthful, was not biased, was not cherry picked. Because if something happened and you get an audit on that data, so at that point you have to disclose that data. I want to make sure that the data you show to me is the data that was used for your product, for your research, and so on. If I buy data from an institution for my new drug, I have to make sure that that data is the original, truthful data and was not maliciously biased so that I can come to the wrong conclusion as a scientist and promote, I don't know, cigarettes and say that cigarettes are a good thing. Because there are two ways to convince a scientist to say the wrong thing. One is to pay and corrupt a scientist. The other is to provide wrong data. So data today can be weaponized. In the AI, it's killer. Because in the 80s, in the 90s, whatever was on TV was the truth. Then in the early 2000s, whatever was online was the truth. Today, whatever is coming from AI is the truth. So if I want to use AI to carry a narrative, all I need to do is train that AI with biased data. I can be the responsible one, cherry picking the data, or I can be even indirectly feeding to the AI companies biased data.
I absolutely love the 80s, 90s, 2000s references, and really puts a lot of things into context for the conversation. It's truly like, yeah, the online AI now is kind of what we all use it for truth. And I think we are also seeing, in the medical field, in the medical world, AI just being how it's being used. And I think, you mentioned it here. Let me ask you this. Maybe walk me through a journey from start to finish, what circular protocol looks like, how it works, what is that kind of like, I don't want to maybe call it roadmap, but what does that look like to log on to circular protocol, and what how long it takes to finish? What's kind of like that process look like?
Yeah, so well, first of all, we have to be able to work in this field, you cannot just go with a simple blockchain. There you will get so much rejection that you will probably work only with little startups. You will never make any money. It will be very hard. So we had to literally build two different verticals. One is a classical blockchain, crypto narrative, of course, and it's the one we are pushing the least. We have it, but we are not really pushing that much. And then we have the enterprise and institutional side. So we literally built two different technology stacks. And in the institutional one, there's no crypto. There's simply not crypto. So the adoption, and there are certifications. So we had to design the architecture. That was the reason I couldn't use the other blockchains, so that the architecture of the network and the blockchain was closer to the requirements to be able to get certifications. So when you go to talk to an institution and now you say, hey, the infrastructure is designed this way, it meets these certifications, blah, blah, blah. So it's not meets a compliance. Meets a compliance is a statement. It can be truthful, but needs to be certified. Okay. So when you have all these instruments in place, then start becoming easier, especially if you start bringing on board key opinion leader in the science, and then you can get to work with important institutions. Indeed, circular is a very tiny project, and probably nobody knows about it. We are a very small project as a blockchain, but we are working with governments. We are working with the important institutions in the healthcare, and we don't have the need to fake volumes or to do certain kind of things, because we are there to sell the truth. So we can't sell the truth pumping numbers or playing that game.
Yeah, with that mentioning, I want to ask you this then. What do you think is the biggest obstacle you are facing? Like, what do you believe is the obstacle? And let me even kind of like throw some spice to that question here. Is like, with regulation just in crypto and blockchain still very kind of up in the air. Many of the bigger names are very much keen to enter blockchain. But from what I've heard from them is, till there's regulation, we don't want to enter. We don't know how to navigate legally the right way. And privacy being one of the other things that they're just like, we don't also know legally how we're going to navigate privacy. And I think you mentioned a little bit of that as well. So love to like, what do you think is like just the biggest obstacle for you and even for the space?
Well, to navigate that is mostly, for me, it's mostly the cost of that, because we are a small company, a small project, and we are growing pretty fast, and handling that growth is not that easy if you are not properly funded. For companies or other projects that have more funding is know-how. I come from this field. I spent my entire life into this field, so I know how to move into this field. For someone that didn't work in the healthcare industry, but getting their hands dirty with regulation, with protocols, it's not trivial, and costs for hiring experts that can help you building that, it's pretty high, and you might find probably 1 out of 10 that will really help you, and most of others will just literally cost you. And it's so those are the biggest obstacles. Honestly, as of today, with the right approach, we got almost no rejections. We sit down, they laugh about us at the very beginning, they understand, and then they have an epiphany and they say, oh, so I can fix this and I can do that. Okay, now that's interesting. As of today, we are working with United States, we're working with the several countries in Europe, and we are starting to work with Middle East, with UAE.
Yeah, that's great, and that's awesome to hear, because I think it's also great encouragement to those that are building in the space of DeSci, because it's also something I always ask, like, what would success look like for us, right? Like, what does success mean? Because I think it's such a thing of so many people think mass adoption and the big players coming in and scooping us up or something like that, or working or being aligned in parallel with what they're doing. And so I think, like, what is ultimate success look like? And yeah, love to hear it from you as well. Like, what does that like look like from a circular protocol standpoint?
Look, mass adoption of decentralization in healthcare is not a possibility, is inevitable. It's inevitable because the world is waking up, and they start understanding that you cannot put certain decisions in the hands of a few that can easily be corrupted. And it's people understood this game now. Now it's only about demonstrating that we can make good healthcare infrastructure using the blockchain, exactly like the initial Web3 people, developers, have to demonstrate to the finance guys that they could do decentralized finance. They went through a curve of acceptance, but there is a difference. While the curve of acceptance for the DeFi was much more stretched out, for the healthcare is going to be much, much more compressed. And it's very simple, the reason, because if you look at the technology life cycle curve of technologies in general, the curve starts with a slope that is pretty low, and then there is ramps up, there is the mass adoption. Then there is a plateau and eventually obsolescence. Today, we are right at the change between the probing and the mass adoption. We are just there. And I think everybody knows that we are going up the mass adoption, because now the amount of people using blockchains for crypto, but in general, are growing by the day. Okay, so whenever we complete and we demonstrate that there is a model, all that good part of science that is sick on depending on institutions that pilot them on what to study, then that will be much easier. That's why I say it's inevitable.
Yeah, no, hats off to you, and it's really great to hear it too as well. And Really, really excited for the future. And, I say this way too many times on streams, but, I think history is repeating itself to what we saw with crypto in 2013, where banks thought fake internet money. And, today in the United States, every single bank offers crypto right now, right? Every single bank is offering.
If I ask you a question, a very simple question, I make a little remark before. So third cause of death in United States is malpractice in healthcare. Okay. So that means that you get hurt or you have something, you go to someone to ask for care, and then you die. Okay. As you might know, the third cause of getting funded in US is not insurance paying for your death because you died in the hospital, right? So there is a mismatch between how many people get paid by insurance for damages and how many people die. Now, my question is to you. Would you pay, I don't know, $5, $10 per year to have your record certified, which means that whatever change is made on the record will leave a track that is, cannot change, is immutable? Will you pay that?
No doubt. I mean, and I'll even go a step further, right? Because nowadays, even your cell phones, the new cell phones, are asking for your medical information, like as an emergency contact. But go one step further now with like all the information, and I'm like, where's this being recorded? So I mean, like, wow. I think like if you're able to connect that, that's just even a step further.
So I mean, you answer to your own question. The fact that there is a need. We demonstrated that there is a need because a lot of people did a lot of bad things. So there is a market because there are millions of people like you that wouldn't mind spending a few bucks to have their data certified and not, in the hands of people that can change that data to don't be accountable. And there is the technology. So you have all the three ingredients for a mass adoption. At this point, it's only about building that trust through real use cases. We are doing exactly this. We are a real infrastructure offering real use cases to the world. You come to talk to Circular, you'll find a lot of small startups that are at the beginning and they decide to work with us because they want to make sure that they don't get sued at some point because they want to be in compliance from that point of view, or at least they want to show the intent. And we also important institutions working with us. I think they are very important use cases in validation. And as this spreads out, there will be more and more adoption. Will be literally I say a network effect.
I know that we're well over our time right now, but I'll ask you this with that said, as I think it tees it up perfect, is what would be your message then to those from a business development partnership standpoint to other companies in the DeSci space that should partner with you? What's that message you send to them of why they should send you a DM, a message, an email today and say, hey, how do I explore partnerships or working with you?
I say to those people to don't do my interest, but to do their best interest. And the previous paradigm has demonstrated that is a failure. Bet on yourself, on the best chance to bring to the world a technology that is, together with transparency of what you're doing. If you are doing good science, you have good intention, you don't have anything to hide, use the blockchain, use Circular or any other that will come in the future, because together we can build a critical mass.
I love it. Gianluca, I appreciate you taking the time today and being able to share the story and share the vision and really share kind of the impact of the work. Really, really excited for the future. Definitely would love to have this stream again in 3 to 6 months to keep listening and hearing more of what's coming and what you guys are working on and how the innovation is happening. And yeah, I think the biggest thing is for us is always like, what can we share to the world? What can we share to those that are following, and how do we could always get involved, even if it's just from a marketing standpoint, from a like to a comment to just a retweet of the information that's being coming out of the Circular Web3 account. We're always here and looking to support more. Appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great weekend, and we will definitely be talking to see how we get keep growing our relationship here and being able to share the stories.
Likewise, thank you guys for having me.